Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fellowship. My name is Adam Hawk, and I am not joined by Ryan Engel. I am writing solo this week. I am down here in San Clemente, California at our HQ. Inside of the boardroom, I am making a pit stop on my way down to San Diego, where I will be staying at Torrey Pines Golf Course just off the 18th fairway for the next 4 nights in a row as I cover the SCGA Men's and Women's Amateur Championships for the Southern California Golf Association. I really was hoping that this would work with Ryan's schedule so we could knock out a podcast this week together like we did last week on Sunday night. And not just a podcast, but I wanted to review the movie Happy Gilmore 2 with Ryan. But he's unable to make it tonight. He's very busy. And so I'm here alone to review the movie by myself, because if I don't review this movie within 72 hours of it coming out, after watching it, I can tell you that it is so forgettable that if we don't get something out about it right now, it's not going to be relevant by the time that we would be able to get back together and do it as a duo. Right after my 4 nights in San Diego, I will be boarding an airplane back to Seattle for a family trip. So I don't know that Ryan and I are going to be able to record next week either. I'm going to be living out of a suitcase for the next 10 days or so. So I thought, let's get this review out to the public. We've talked about Happy Gilmore 2 when we heard the release date. Neither one of us were that excited. We predicted that it wouldn't be great. We predicted that there would be a media marketing machine behind it full of influencers and all the actors that made Cameos and Netflix and Golf Instagram, and that they would be carrying water for this movie. And so far, exactly what we said has played out. So I'm going to crack a beer, a Miller Lite, and I am going to review Happy Gilmore 2 right now. "29 years after its theatrical release, and Happy Gilmore has received the sequel treatment. And now, to be fair, sequels are rarely, if ever, better than the original, especially if that original, like Happy Gilmore, is a cult classic from the 90s that was on heavy VCR rotation for every millennial of a certain age. The first Happy Gilmore, in my humble opinion, and in the opinion of many people, is a perfect movie. And it's not just a perfect golf movie or a perfect sports movie or a perfect comedy. It's just a perfect movie. The writing, the acting, the casting, the soundtrack, the story, the quotability, the jokes, the timelessness of it. It's utter perfection. But what makes the first Happy Gilmore truly special is just how rewatchable it is. Rare is the movie that you can see 100 times and know every line before they're coming, and it's still as funny as the first time you saw it. But that's Happy Gilmore. So my favorite Happy Gilmore sequel has been every time I rewatched the first one. I never needed a second one. And quite honestly, I don't know that anyone did, and I don't know that anyone was asking for this. But here we are, 29 years later, and Adam Sandler and Netflix decided that it was time. But why was it time? Is it because Adam Sandler has a massive deal with Netflix to keep making straight-to-streaming movies? Is it because golf has never been more popular and they wanted to capitalize on the moment? Or is it because Sandler has an orbit of friends and family around him that only work when he works and he loves taking care of them? I don't know. It's probably a combination of all three. But Happy Gilmore 2 is out now as of July 25th on Netflix. $30 million budget, 2 hours of runtime and more cameos than money spent on the film. I should have said it earlier. The following content contains nothing but spoilers as I'm going to review the plot. So if you haven't seen the movie, this would be a good time to stop listening to this podcast episode and maybe come back after you have seen the movie. You've been warned. Now, I'm not going to hold Happy Gilmore 2's feet to the fire for storytelling because I don't think that telling a good story was actually the main objective here. I think that getting as many people to watch as possible was all that they wanted. And given the amount of hype and marketing and cameos in this particular movie, the folks that made it are likely going to achieve their goal. That being said, the way that they chose to fill in a 29-year time gap and pick up from a movie in 1996 that had such a clear-cut ending with no open-endedness for a sequel was beyond lazy. The movie opens with a voiceover and a montage, very similar to the first one, but instead of telling a story from scratch like they did in 1996, this time they are fast-forwarding as quickly as they can through 3 decades of Happy's life and adding stakes to the screenplay that give any reason they can that someone should still be interested in what has been going on with Happy Gilmore the last 30 years. So we see early on that Happy Gilmore, the golfer, was winning golf tournaments after the first movie. And it turns out that in this warp speed catch-up timeline story that they told at the beginning, that Happy won 4 more tour championships and now he has 5 gold jackets. But one day, Happy hooked a drive left in tournament play and hit his wife Virginia right in the bullseye of her noggin and killed her on impact. Killed Virginia Vennet, his wife, on impact with an errant tee shot 5 minutes into the movie. That's how the writers decided to handle Virginia Vennet's storyline and how to add stakes to what we were about to see. To me, that's equal parts startling and lazy, and there was no comedy in it at all. Happy Gilmore, the man who accidentally killed Chubbs, has now accidentally killed his wife. And we find out that he and Virginia had 5 kids together and that they were living in Happy's grandma's house, the famous setting and main plot point of the first movie. And apparently within just a few months of Virginia dying, Happy becomes an alcoholic and they lose grandma's house again because Virginia did the finances. And now that she's dead, Happy has somehow lost millions and millions of dollars in the blink of an eye. I don't know how that happens, folks. I don't know how your wife dies and just because she balanced the checkbook, all of a sudden you lose all of your money that quickly. To me, it's beyond far-fetched. Grandma's house in 1996 was paid off and the back taxes were settled, so there's no mortgage. And according to Happy Gilmore 2, Happy has apparently been the best golfer of the 90s. So if we're following along, he probably has hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, but within a few months of his wife dying, he loses everything? Floyd Mayweather couldn't blow hundreds of millions of dollars in a few months because no one could. And at some point, if things were going that far south that quickly, Happy Gilmore, as a father of 5, which he is, according to the sequel, probably would have called anybody, to help him figure out the finances. And what's even stranger is that the movie, the sequel, didn't say that he was wasting his money on extravagant things, just that he couldn't play golf anymore because he was traumatized that he killed his wife playing golf and that she kept the family book. So it's all over. It's all up in smoke. Anyway, massive plot hole aside, Happy is broke. He loses grandma's house again, and now he's working at a grocery store drinking hidden booze out of a cucumber as a washed-up former golfer back to square one. And then we find out his one and only daughter is a brilliant ballet dancer who needs to go to Paris to take a class that costs $75,000 a year. And of course, he can't pay for it because he's broke. So Happy Gilmore needs to pay for something for someone in his family so they can be happy. Where have we heard this before? Oh, that's right. The first Happy Gilmore. We're 25 minutes into the movie, no laughs, and it took almost a half hour to set up the exact same premise as the first movie. And then we get to John Daly. John Daly lives in Happy's rundown house in the garage, and in John Daly's first scene, he is seen watching Love Island by himself. And this is where the lazy writing starts to show you just how lazy it is. Daly invites Happy down to the garage to have a few pops and watch Love Island, but Happy declines, and John Daly turns back to the TV and says to himself, "Oh, I hope he marries her." This is supposed to be some one-line joke that gets a laugh because homeless John Daly watching Love Island by himself in a garage is funny, and John Daly being invested to the point of wanting to see true love by saying he hopes a couple gets married is even funnier. But it's not funny because it's barely a joke. It sounds like the first idea in the writer's room, but a first idea that ended up being their only idea. That's not a joke, that's a line and not a very good one. And I'm going to expose myself here, and that's fine. But couples don't get married on Love Island. They get married on Love is Blind. And yes, both of those shows got popular at the same time, and they share a similar title, but they're two completely different shows, and the line that John Daly said applies to Love is Blind, not Love Island. So it's a lazy joke and not even an accurate one, and there are plenty more the rest of the way too. The story finally picks up when Happy is approached by the owner of a new golf league called Maxi. And this is a league that seeks to kill traditional golf and bring in a new era of loud bad boy golf where they only play 7 holes in a team format. It's very unclear if Maxi Golf is supposed to be a parody of Live Golf, and it's unclear because Bubba Watson, Brooks Koepka, and Bryson DeChambeau are all in Happy Gilmore 2. And they're all on the tour's side in this battle against the new league. Now, the owner of the new league, Maxi, is played by Benny Safdie. And Benny Safdie, in real life, is a brilliant director and writer and actor. And he made Uncut Gems with Sandler a few years ago, and that will likely go down as the best thing Sandler has ever done from an acting standpoint. So seeing these two paired up on camera was actually really cool. But in this setting with this script, it turned out to be a major letdown. Want some more lazy writing? Safdie's character, the owner of Maxi Golf, becomes known for his bad breath. And apparently it's so bad it registers as a fart in a smell sensor later in the movie. Turns out the character had genetic halitosis and tongue rot from a Maxi Golf energy drink. If this does not sound funny to you, it's because it's not, but it's a joke that they go back to half a dozen times. That is the main villain's character trait, bad breath. Awesome. Whenever something is objectively bad, which this is, I always think about the writer's room. And when someone pitched that idea, and then the fact that it went through 7 other people in that same room, and they couldn't do any better, and then it gets in the script, and then acted by an actor, and then makes it to the final cut. How did bad breath being a character's funny point make it to the screen? But by now, we have our villain, Maxi Golf, and we have our motivation. Happy wants to save traditional golf, get off the booze, and make enough money to send his daughter to dance school. But he hasn't played in a while because he killed his wife playing golf. Apparently no one yelled "for" like they do every single time on tour when someone hits an errant tee shot, which is a shame because Virginia Vennet yelled Happy, look out! Happy, look out! When a Volkswagen came after him. Volkswagen! So she was looking out for him. He was not looking out for her. Anyway, Happy wants to save traditional golf, get off the booze, and make enough money to send his daughter to dance school. But Happy hasn't played in a while, so he hides behind a hat and sunglasses and goes and plays around with 3 strangers at a local muni, and he sucks at golf. And the 3 people he's playing with laugh at him, and then he reveals he's Happy Gilmore so they can stop laughing at him, and then he goes to his happy place and figures it out, but he's still drunk, so he falls asleep driving the golf cart at the end of the round and drives it over a bunker into the other cart, and they both explode. So Happy ends up going to AA meetings to straighten out his life. And this is where we meet Hal, the nursing home warden from the first movie played by Ben Stiller. And he is the leader of the AA group. And Hal has everyone in the class going to his house on the weekends to do chores like cutting his grass and cleaning his gutters. Do you get it? It's a bit of a callback to the first movie, because in the first movie he used to have old ladies knit blankets. So he is still, in this movie 30 years later, exploiting people that he's in charge of. Happy ends up making friends with someone in the class who is played by his real-life daughter, and now 40 minutes into the film, Sandler's entire family has made their way into the movie. This person, played by Happy's daughter, gets Happy sober, so when he gets home, he gets rid of all of the booze in the house, which he has hid in all these different places, and at one point he tricks John Daly into thinking that he has hidden alcohol in a bottle of hand sanitizer. So John Daly takes the hand sanitizer, pumps it into his mouth, and gags because there's no booze, it's just hand sanitizer. Not a very clever gag, but it gets worse because John Daly decides to keep drinking it, and at least 3 more times throughout the movie, John Daly is shown pumping hand sanitizer into his mouth. The jokes are so obvious and such a nod to exaggerated pop culture. John Daly being the fun-loving, barefoot golfing, drunk guy in loud pants. Of course, he would be now the homeless guy in Happy's garage watching Love Island drinking hand sanitizer. The hand sanitizer bit wasn't funny the first time, so they did what they've done with every joke so far, and they do it a few more times throughout the movie. That was the mantra of Happy Gilmore 2. Keep telling the same jokes over and over again, even if they didn't work the first time. But right about now is when we finally find out where Shooter McGavin is, and he is in a mental institution, and that's where he's been for the last 29 years, ever since Happy made that trick shot putt off the TV tower and won the gold jacket. It has spun out McGavin so hard that he has been in the loony bin. But then he gets out, and he and Happy have a fist fight in a tiny cemetery where you see the graves of Happy's grandma and Bob Barker and Chubbs. And then they become friends right after duking it out. Happy and Shooter do. So they are no longer enemies, but friends uniting against the common enemy of Maxi Golf, because Happy wants Shooter's help to help him become a better golfer so he can take down Maxi Golf. Now, in the movie, somewhere between Shooter getting out of the mental institution and then deciding to help Happy, we see Happy go back to a tour championship dinner. This is where all the gold jackets hang out, very similar to the Champions Dinner at Augusta. At this tour championship dinner, he and the rest of the gold jackets hear a speech from the commissioner, Doug, who is played by the same actor that played Doug in the first movie. And Doug tells them, we're going to play the tour championship. And the top 5 finishers are then going to play a match against the top 5 Maxi players. If the tour guys win, Maxi goes away. If Maxi wins, then the tour goes away. Right, because that's how big business works. Anyway, at this dinner, Travis Kelce is the waiter, and Bad Bunny is the busboy. And yes, I had to ask my wife who Bad Bunny is and why he's famous. Off the top of my head, the cameos alone in this scene included Jordan Spieth, Xander Schauffele, Ricky Fowler, Keegan Bradley, Fred Couples, Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, Lee Trevino, and Colin Morikawa. The writers gave all of these guys the worst jokes. Like the one where Jack orders an iced tea and lemonade, and Travis Kelce replies, "Sure, Arnold Palmer, got it." And Jack says, "No, I'm Jack Nicklaus, but I get that a lot." If you follow golf, that is a bad joke because it's so obvious. And if you don't follow golf, then it went way over your head. So that joke serves no one. And then Xander and Ricky Fowler team up for not one, not two, but three "that's what she said" jokes. These writers gave pro golfers the Michael Scott line 3 times. And it was literal crickets every time. That scene, the Tour Champions dinner with the acting and the writing, set pro golf back 20 years. Not even kidding. It was horrible. So hard to get through. But here's the thing. There were 12 or more people in that scene, and only 2 of them were actors. Adam Sandler and the guy who plays Doug. Everyone else was either a rapper or an athlete. And that's one of the big reasons why this movie didn't work. There weren't any actors in it. It was just celebrities making cameos over and over and over again. And when you think about the first one, the first Happy Gilmore, the one cameo was Lee Trevino, and all he did was shake his head and say Grizzly Adams did have a beard. And it worked because Lee Trevino's role was so limited, and they actually bothered to give him a great line and a great part. And yeah, sure, Bob Barker wasn't a traditional actor, but that guy was on TV for 100 years. He knew what he was doing in front of a camera, and he's got one of the best parts in that entire first movie. Back to the sequel, Happy Gilmore is off to play in the first of 2 tournaments, the Tour Championship, and this is where the movie broke the fourth wall and gave way too much of a wink and a nod to pop culture. Remember when everyone online was joking that pro golfer Will Zallurus, when he broke onto the PGA Tour scene, looked like the caddy in the first Happy Gilmore, the caddy that caddies for him at the Waterbury Open before the homeless guy eventually takes over? Well, Happy Gilmore 2 decided to make that joke a reality in their cinematic universe, because when pro golfer Will Zallurus showed up on screen as Happy's playing partner in Happy Gilmore 2, it was written as if Will Zallurus was actually the caddy from 1996. And it turns out that after caddying for Happy, Will went on to become a pro golfer, and he went on to become the pro golfer Will Zallurus, a pro golfer that would tee it up with Happy 29 years later. If that's tough to follow, maybe I laid it out poorly. Essentially, the movie is saying that, yes, Will Zallurus, the real PGA Tour golfer who was really in Happy Gilmore 2 playing himself, was actually the caddy that you saw on screen 29 years ago. Now, does the joke work? In a movie, sure, any timeline is possible. But Will Zallurus, the real Will Zallurus, was born in 1996, so he was exactly 0 years old when Happy Gilmore first had that blonde-haired caddy at the Waterbury Open. So in the Happy Gilmore timeline, the cinematic timeline, Will Zallurus, who is now 29 in real life and looks 29 in the sequel, is actually somewhere between 45 to 50 years old if we're following the Happy Gilmore timeline. Because the caddy in the first movie, based on his looks alone, was somewhere between 16 to 21, and everything in the sequel is 29 years later. So if Will Zallurus has been Happy's caddy all along, he either started the gig as an unborn baby or he's 50 years old now. So again, does the joke work? It's up to you, valued audience member. Now, during the Tour Championship in that sequel, Happy plays well enough for 3 rounds, but then he relapses on the hooch because the final round was on Mother's Day. It fell on Mother's Day. And Mother's Day reminded Happy of his dead wife that he killed with an errant tee shot. Side note, somebody would have called 4 in real life, and most wives of super famous golfers aren't watching from the fairway grass. I've never seen Elin Woods or Amy Mickelson or Meredith Scheffler or Erica McElroy slumming it with the gallery on the ropes. But again, this plot has more holes in it than an actual golf course. Also, I've never known a pro golf season to wrap up on Mother's Day, which falls in early May. Now, in the sequel, because it's Mother's Day and he relapses and gets drunk again, Happy drops from first place to 6th place and he finishes outside of the top 5, so he won't be taking on the Maxi team in the next tournament. Except, wait a minute, the guy that won the Tour Championship is actually a Maxi golfer in disguise. So now Happy, as the 6th place golfer, is back in. What a twist! So now Happy, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, Brooks Koepka, and Bryson DeChambeau are assembled to go save traditional golf against Maxi and the owner with the bad breath. What a movie. But this Maxi tournament is going to be different. It's new golf. And in new golf, par 4s are 1,000 yards long. The greens are elevated and spin around in circles, and the bunkers are on fire. Oh, and all the Maxi golfers had a surgery to remove a hip ligament so they can rotate more and hit the ball 500 yards. None of what I just said was made up. Those were actually plot points in this movie. Now, Happy, knowing that his squad is up against it and can't compete with these freak Maxi golfers, Happy goes to a mini golf course and finds Chubbs Peterson's son, who also has a wooden hand and goes by the name Slim. And of course, Happy breaks that wooden hand again, because everything in this movie was a watered-down callback of the first movie. But with Slim, a.k.a. Chubbs Jr., and Shooter McGavin coaching this team, nothing can go wrong. And then we get a montage which involves Happy taking Rory and Scotty and Brooks and Bryson to a batting cage where, of course, they get hit in the face, the chest, and the crank with baseballs. Very, very similar to the first one. But it's in this montage where Happy teaches Scotty Scheffler how to pull a shirt over someone's head and deck them in the face, which then sets Scotty up later in the movie to punch his playing competitor, get DQ'd from the match, and have cops arrest him, to which Scotty says, quote, "Not again," end quote. Get it? Because Scotty was arrested in real life. The final match in this movie between the tour players and the Maxi players is a ridiculous sequence of events that literally felt like watching 15 minutes of screen time completely made by AI. Not CGI, but AI. There are the weirdest special effects throughout this final sequence, and I've seen a lot of people online speculate that it was indeed made by AI. Those last 15 minutes felt off in a really, really weird way. But in the story, Happy makes the final putt on a spinning green and saves traditional golf, and he also wins a bet in the process that gets his daughter into dance school. And when she flies away, he watches the plane take off and then looks to the sky and sees everyone in the clouds and waves to them again. He sees his grandma, the alligator, Abe Lincoln, Chubbs. And after that callback to the first movie, he tries to start his electric Rolls Royce, but it's out of battery. So he walks away with his golf bag down the street while the credits roll. That was the final joke. His electric Rolls Royce wouldn't start because it's dead. And that's the film. Oh yeah, and the FBI busted the AA meetings, and Hal was arrested on extortion charges. And even though this movie was ripe with holes, having the FBI bust an AA meeting because the leader was having the students do yard work seems a few rungs below usual FBI business. So, To me, in conclusion, the movie was lazy and unfunny, extremely forgettable. I watched it on Friday. It's Sunday night now. Had I not have taken notes, I would have forgot most of everything that I saw. It was criminally uninteresting. And while the first movie has 100 lines that people quote on a daily basis, this movie will have nothing that anyone will quote ever. The first movie can be rewatched an infinite amount of times. This movie was hard to get through once, and I promise you, anyone that watched it once will not watch it a second time. And where most movies have actors, this movie had celebrities and cameos. And where most movies have writing, this movie served to only set up callbacks of the jokes that we knew and loved in 1996 that did not need to be rehashed in a watered-down way. This movie also cut away to clips of the first movie half a dozen times, which is a choice I've never seen in any sequel. I've never seen any sequel toss to clips from the prequel. And it was awkward. And it was unnecessary, too, because anyone watching Happy Gilmore 2 has seen Happy Gilmore 1 a million times and has the movie memorized. We all know the jokes and the moments and the characters from the first one. The one thing Happy Gilmore 2 did not need to do was cut away to the first one at all. If this movie, Happy Gilmore 2, was an original and not a sequel, I would call it harmlessly bad. And I wouldn't think about it again, and I wouldn't care. But because this movie was a sequel to an all-time great film, and because we now have to refer to the original Happy Gilmore as the original Happy Gilmore instead of just Happy Gilmore, and because we now have to say Happy Gilmore 1 or the first Happy Gilmore, there was actual damage done. It wasn't just bad, Happy Gilmore 2, it was harmful to a legacy. It bastardized the first one. And I know this can sound weird, but I actually think a lot of people can relate to this. I'm oddly protective of Happy Gilmore, the first one. That movie defined so much of my childhood, and it's something that I go back to often. Probably once a year I'll throw on Happy Gilmore. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Isn't it everyone's? So I think the sequel was a disgrace in every sense of the word. It disgraced the original, and now it occupies part of the conversation whenever you have to talk about Happy Gilmore now and in the future. I give it a resounding F. It was a fail. Nothing about it passed. And no, I actually don't think that they could have made it better. Because this was doomed from the start. You can't pick up a 29-year gap off a movie that had a clear-cut ending. It's not that Happy Gilmore 2 could have been better. It's that it should have never been made. I give it an F, and I do it with bitterness. But I don't do it to be negative. I do it in defense of the first one. To anyone that says Happy Gilmore 2 was good or funny, if you are not a bot, you're entitled to your opinion, but I just gave you a million reasons for mine. So let me ask you, what was good about it? What was funny about it? What lines will you be using in everyday life? And how many times will you rewatch it? I truly believe that anyone defending or hyping this movie is either on the payroll or an influencer who has to be an online cog in the marketing machine, or you got a swag bag from Netflix delivered to your door that you unboxed on social media, or you're too scared to say the truth because you don't want to get unfollowed or be blacklisted by the groupthink scene. No one anywhere who cares about the first one or can spot halfway decent acting and writing can give this movie anything other than an F. If your favorite moments from Happy Gilmore 2 were the callbacks to Happy Gilmore 1, just go watch the first one. It holds up. It always has. It always will. It just unfortunately now has to be referred to as the first one. that's the review. Hope it was okay. Hope it wasn't too negative. Hope it held your attention. Hard to do that amount of talking all by yourself. I really could have used my broadcast partner, Ryan Engel, who brings the comedy to the proceedings. But next time I podcast with him, I will certainly set him up for his review. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. No video this week because looking at me for this amount of time straight, just do this take, didn't seem like a good use of anyone's time. So no video. Thanks for listening to the audio. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you. I don't know if we'll talk to you next Monday, but we'll talk to you when we talk to you.